The room fell into an uneasy silence as Tim Scott leaned forward, eyes flashing, voice sharp with barely restrained anger. "You just don't understand the people you claim to serve," he spat, the words cutting through the tension like a blade. Cameras clicked furiously, capturing every subtle twitch, every rising heartbeat. The audience shifted in their seats, some leaning forward, others recoiling, unsure whether to gasp or applaud. The air was electric, charged with anticipation and a silent, collective dread. Kamala Harris remained perfectly still, her hands folded lightly in front of her, shoulders relaxed. Her gaze was steady, unwavering, an unspoken challenge simmering beneath her calm exterior. The contrast was immediate and stark. Scott's agitation, the red flush creeping across his cheeks, the sudden clench of his jaw versus Harris's composed poise, her calm a silent storm waiting to break. Every eye in the room tracked the tension, the invisible rope stretching taut between arrogance and dignity, between noise and reason. Reporters whispered behind cameras, murmuring speculation and predictions. Social media notifications had already begun to explode, tweets capturing fragments of the exchange, snippets destined to ignite the debate across the country. Even the most seasoned political watchers felt their pulse quicken. It was the kind of moment that demanded attention, that refused to be ignored. And then, as Scott's voice rose another octave, the audience held its breath, sensing the pivot before it even happened. Harris tilted her head slightly, a subtle signal, almost imperceptible, but enough to hint at the storm about to be unleashed. The room waited, suspended in anticipation, unaware that the next words would not just answer the insult, they would reshape the entire narrative. But no one could have predicted how Harris would flip the script. The year was 2025, a pivotal moment in American politics. Every word, every gesture carried weight far beyond the walls of this chamber. Tim Scott, hailed by some as the rising star of his party, had built a reputation on charm and ambition, but his confidence often teetered on arrogance. Across the table, Kamala Harris carried decades of experience, battles fought in courtrooms and on the Senate floor, each victory hard-won through perseverance, strategy, and unshakable resolve. This was not just another debate. It was a collision of personas, histories, and visions for the nation's future. The stakes were impossible to ignore. Americans across the country tuned in, streaming live, gathering in living rooms and cafes, scrolling and refreshing their feeds, knowing that the unfolding exchange could define perceptions, sway opinions, and ignite conversations that would last far beyond the broadcast. Identity, dignity, race, and leadership were all in play, intertwining with the very values that shaped the nation. Scott's polished confidence bristled against Harris's calm authority, a clash that symbolized more than politics. It reflected the tension between spectacle and substance, bravado and experience. Whispers of the moment spread faster than any policy discussion could, amplified by social media networks ready to dissect, meme, and debate every nuance. Influencers, journalists, and ordinary citizens alike waited for the spark that would set the internet ablaze. The camera lenses seemed to magnify every expression, every pause, every subtle shift of power. And then, in that fragile instant, it became clear. This was more than a clash of personalities. This was a defining moment in 2025, one that could not be ignored. One that demanded attention. The next word spoken would echo across social media within minutes. Tim Scott had built a career that sparkled on the surface, but revealed cracks when examined closely. Rising from humble beginnings in North Charleston, South Carolina, he had positioned himself as the face of hope and perseverance within his party. On paper, his story was inspirational. A young man navigating the corridors of power, overcoming obstacles, and emerging as a national figure. Yet, behind the headlines and press releases, there was a carefully curated persona, one designed to attract attention, cultivate influence, and climb the political ladder with calculated precision. Ambition drove him, but ambition without introspection often bordered on opportunism. Observers noted a recurring pattern in Scott's political trajectory. His loyalty was unwavering, not to principle, but to party strategy. Policies were filtered through a lens of optics and alignment, sometimes sacrificing truth for the sake of applause, sometimes bending facts to fit a narrative that would bolster his standing. While supporters praised his charm and eloquence, critics whispered of selective convictions. Decisions swayed more by timing than by moral compass. Every speech, every carefully timed tweet, every public gesture seemed to be part of a grand performance, designed not just to communicate, but to win, to dominate, to score points in the court of public opinion. His presence in the chamber carried a familiar energy, confidence bordering on arrogance, posture perfected, smile rehearsed, gaze sharp yet calculating. Scott had mastered the art of appearing, unshakable while subtly undermining opponents, seizing openings to assert dominance. The public saw a rising star. Insiders often saw a strategist more concerned with optics than substance. The contrast between image and reality created an aura that was compelling to some and frustrating to others, but undeniably magnetic. In interviews, Scott projected charisma effortlessly, answering difficult questions with practiced grace, yet moments of overreach revealed fissures. A carefully chosen phrase here, a pointed jab there, and he seemed to relish the spotlight, eager to leverage every interaction for maximum personal gain. It was a confidence that bordered on performative, a veneer that commanded attention and admiration while simultaneously drawing subtle skepticism. And yet, for all his skill, for all the applause he had garnered and the headlines he had mastered, there was a vulnerability hidden beneath the surface. A confidence built on calculated steps can falter when faced with an adversary who refuses to play by the same script. Scott's overconfidence was about to meet its match. Kamala Harris's story began far from the polished halls of power, rooted instead in the values and sacrifices of her parents. The daughter of immigrants, her mother a researcher from India, her father an economist from Jamaica, she was raised with the twin lessons of resilience and responsibility. From an early age, she witnessed the quiet courage required to navigate a world that did not always welcome outsiders, absorbing a sense of purpose that would shape every choice she made. These early experiences instilled in her a belief in justice, equality, and the transformative power of service, guiding her toward a life dedicated not to spectacle, but to substance. Her journey through law and politics was neither easy nor conventional. Harris worked tirelessly, mastering the intricacies of the legal system, advocating for those whose voices were often unheard, and confronting systemic inequities with unwavering determination. Every courtroom, every case, every legislative battle honed her intellect and her patience, teaching lessons that no headline or viral moment could ever capture. She learned to balance empathy with resolve, to confront opposition with clarity rather than anger, and to transform challenges into opportunities for meaningful change. Discipline became second nature, her focus unshakable. The challenges she faced were not abstract. They were personal. Harris endured scrutiny that tested not only her policies, but her character. Navigating a landscape where her gender, her heritage, and her identity were constantly under the microscope. Yet in every trial, she emerged stronger, her dignity intact, her resolve sharpened. These experiences molded her into a leader capable of navigating the most high-pressure situations with poise and insight. She carried the weight of her history with grace, a living testament to perseverance in the face of adversity. Those who observed her closely saw a leader whose calm strength inspired confidence, whose measured words carried weight because they were rooted in experience and principle. She commanded respect not through theatrics, but through presence, an authority that did not need to shout to be heard. Every challenge she faced had been a preparation, every setback a lesson, every victory a reminder of the values she championed. And so, when she stepped into the chamber, when the air thickened with tension and Scott's voice rose in challenge, she was ready. Every moment of her life had built toward this confrontation, every struggle had fortified her resolve, and every lesson had prepared her for what was coming. And that's exactly why, when the moment came, she didn't flinch. The atmosphere crackled as Tim Scott's voice climbed, sharp and insistent, cutting through the chamber with each pointed accusation. His words, laced with derision, aimed to unsettle, to provoke a reaction that would make him appear dominant. "You claim to speak for all Americans," he said, voice rising, "but your record tells a different story." The statement drew murmurs from the audience, some leaning forward in anticipation, others exchanging uneasy glances. His gestures were precise, deliberate, a display of control and authority, but the underlying frustration betrayed him. Kamala. Harris responded with deliberate calm. Her voice was steady, measured, carrying a resonance that seemed to draw the room into her orbit. Each of Scott's attempts at provocation met with a composed pause, a subtle tightening of her jaw, a quiet inhale that spoke volumes. The contrast was palpable. Scott's energy crackled with impatience and ambition, while Harris radiated control and experience. Every rising intonation from him only amplified the gravity of her restraint, highlighting the difference between those driven by ego and those grounded in principle. The chamber itself seemed to hold its breath. Whispers of commentary mingled with the clicks of cameras, capturing every micro-expression. Audience members stifled gasps as Scott unleashed a particularly biting line, one designed to humiliate, to corner. Yet Harris's calm never wavered. Her eyes met his directly, unflinching, the faintest smile playing on her lips as if she had already anticipated his moves. The tension escalated, not just in volume, but in significance. Every word a test of poise, every rebuttal a measure of authority. Across social media, alerts pinged incessantly, notifications multiplying as clips of the confrontation spread in real time. Viewers at home in offices, cafes, and dorms felt the rising suspense, the mounting pressure of a clash that seemed to balance on a knife's edge. The room, the cameras, the nation, all watched, knowing the stakes were higher than any ordinary debate. Then, with the nation watching, Harris unleashed the counterattack. Kamala Harris leaned forward ever so slightly, her gaze locking onto Tim Scott with the precision of a strategist who had anticipated every move. The chamber seemed to contract around them, the noise of murmurs and camera shutters fading into a tense, almost reverent silence. Her first pause stretched just long, enough for the anticipation to build. A measured inhale that demanded attention. Every eye in the room was drawn to her calm presence, every microphone and lens capturing the intensity that crackled in the air. Scott's confident smirk began to falter, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty, a subtle tension threading through his shoulders. Stage one of her takedown began with quiet precision, exposing hypocrisy. "You speak of representing the people," Harris said, voice steady but sharp. "Yet the policies you champion consistently favor optics over substance. You promise progress, yet your record tells a different story, one where power and self-interest outweigh justice." The words hung in the air like a verdict. The crowd stirred, a mixture of gasps and murmurs echoing through the chamber. Scott's face reddened as the first layer of his composure began to crack. His hands clenched subtly, betraying the discomfort that words alone could not conceal. Stage two unfolded seamlessly, dismantling his argument. Harris dissected each of Scott's previous assertions, calmly laying bare the inconsistencies, the overgeneralizations. and the empty bravado. Her delivery was methodical, unhurried, a surgeon stripping away the facade with precision. Every rebuttal landed with weight, amplified by the visual contrast of her composed demeanor against his growing agitation. The cameras caught it all, the tilt of her head, the calm articulation, the subtle nods from allies in the chamber. Scott attempted interjections, but each was met with a poised, measured silence that magnified the power of her points. Stage 3 was the masterstroke, flipping his attack into inspiration. Harris shifted tone, rising above the personal confrontation to speak to broader values, framing the clash as a moment for dignity and collective responsibility. "This isn't about individual victories," she declared, her voice swelling, with controlled intensity. "It's about the promise we make to every American that integrity, courage, and service are never compromised. Leadership is not measured by volume or spectacle. It is proven through action, through consistency, through respect for truth." The chamber leaned in, captivated. Scott's attempts at rebuttal faltered, his earlier aggression now appearing, performative and hollow. Then came the climactic mic drop line. Harris paused, letting the weight of her words settle before delivering the final, unforgettable blow. Arrogance may raise its voice, but it can never silence truth. The chamber erupted in murmurs, a ripple of awe and approval sweeping through the audience. Cameras flashed relentlessly, social media alerts pinged like wildfire, capturing the decisive moment in every frame. Scott's composure was shattered. The red flush deepened, his confidence visibly crumbling under the gravity of her measured authority. The chamber fell silent, but outside, the reaction was only beginning. The moment Harris delivered her final words, the digital world ignited. Hashtags surged across Twitter, TikTok clips exploded in feeds, and reaction videos multiplied like wildfire. Kamala McDrop and Truth Over Arrogance dominated trending charts within minutes. Memes circulated instantly, juxtaposing Scott's flustered expressions with Harris's calm authority, each one reinforcing the narrative of composure and triumph. Notifications pinged relentlessly as the exchange became the centerpiece of every conversation, from casual viewers to political pundits. Supporters erupted with unrestrained enthusiasm. Comment sections overflowed with messages of admiration. "Kamala destroyed him!" Finally, someone held him accountable. Dignity always wins. Social media became a living echo chamber of validation, with users remixing clips, creating reaction compilations, and sharing moments that highlighted the stark contrast between agitation and measured leadership. The sense of collective pride among those who had followed Harris's journey was palpable. The digital applause was instantaneous, widespread, and deeply personal for many who saw themselves reflected in her calm strength. Even neutral commentators, those trained to withhold overt bias, could not ignore the impact. Analysts dissected the exchange, praising her strategic composure and pinpoint precision in dismantling Scott's points. The narrative of a poised, experienced leader confronting arrogance dominated evening recaps, news podcasts, and online forums. Every frame, every pause, every perfectly timed rebuttal was replayed and analyzed, creating a record of a moment that transcended a single debate stage. The ripple effect extended further. Talk shows devoted entire segments to the confrontation. Late-night comedy sketches lampooned Scott's bluster while celebrating Harris's mastery, and podcasts examined the encounter for hours, unpacking the broader implications for leadership, politics, and public discourse. Even casual viewers who had tuned in for curiosity became participants in the conversation, sharing clips, debating outcomes, and spreading the story across platforms. The impact was immediate, viral, and undeniable, yet it was clear that the significance went beyond a mere viral moment. Harris had not only answered the challenge before her, She had set a new standard for civility, strategy, and dignity in confrontation. But Harris wasn't just winning the debate. She was reframing the entire conversation. In the quiet that followed the storm of words and flashes, Kamala Harris turned the moment from a confrontation into a lesson for every viewer. It was no longer just about who had won or lost on the debate stage. It was a demonstration of a deeper truth. Dignity always outweighs arrogance, and integrity always surpasses bluster. Every gesture, every carefully chosen word had conveyed a principle larger than politics itself, a reminder that leadership is measured not by volume or spectacle, but by the ability to hold firm to truth in the face of provocation. The clash became a reflection of broader American values. Perseverance was embodied in Harris's career, her journey shaped by challenges that demanded resilience. Service was evident in the way she spoke not for herself, but for the collective aspirations of the nation. Courage was displayed not through theatrics, but through quiet, unwavering confidence in the principles she had long championed. The exchange became more than a personal victory. It was a demonstration of what it meant to lead with purpose and conviction. Audiences across the country felt the resonance. Those who had grown frustrated with spectacle-driven politics recognized the power of calm, thoughtful engagement. Immigrant families saw a reflection of themselves in Harris's journey, inspired by her ability to transform struggle into leadership. Young viewers, hungry for examples of principled strength, witnessed a masterclass in turning confrontation into affirmation. The debate had transcended its immediate context, becoming a cultural touchstone, a moment that could be replayed, shared, and reflected upon for lessons far beyond the chamber. In truth, the clash between Harris and Scott was never just a political skirmish. It was a test of leadership, a gauge of character, and a reminder that the nation watches not only what is said, but how it is said. In the end, it was clarity, composure, and commitment to principle that defined the encounter, leaving a lasting impression on all who witnessed it. And as the dust settled, one lesson was clear. Kamala Harris had faced Tim Scott on the debate stage, and the result was undeniable. She had destroyed him, not with anger, not with theatrics, but with the steady force of calm truth. Every argument she dismantled, every hypocrisy she exposed had reinforced a simple but powerful principle. Arrogance may raise its voice, but it cannot withstand composure. In that chamber, she proved that integrity, strategy, and dignity are far more potent than bluster or bravado. The lesson resonates far beyond politics. In boardrooms, classrooms, and living rooms across the nation, viewers could see that measured confidence and principled action are the tools that create lasting impact. Moments like these remind us that leadership is not about dominating others through noise, but about inspiring through example. Harris's performance was not just a win in a debate. It was a masterclass in demonstrating that truth, patience, and resilience always have the final word. And now, this moment is not just a clip or a headline. It is a call to action for all of us, to stand firm in our values, to approach challenges with clarity and courage, and to reject the empty spectacle of arrogance whenever it appears. Every viewer who witnessed this exchange carries the opportunity to reflect, share, and engage in a way that amplifies dignity over division. Subscribe for more moments where truth silences arrogance. Share this to remind others that dignity always wins. Engage, discuss, and be part of a community that celebrates leadership rooted in integrity. The confrontation may have ended on the stage, but its lessons continue, echoing in conversations, debates, and the everyday choices we make. Kamala Harris didn't just win a debate. She demonstrated that steadfast composure can change the narrative, influence the nation, and inspire us all to act with purpose.